I conducted surveillance of her for a while after she dumped me, and I called it surveillance because stalking is a felony. And I found out that she was dating some French guy, some guy named Fiance. So I can take a hint. And then I dated a woman from the circus. She was the sword swallower. Don't get ahead of me. She used to call me her little pocket knife, and that hurt. I'm not going to lie to you.
Welcome, everyone, to the Rosie and Bill Show. Our guest this week has been headlining America's top comedy clubs for years, and the title of his recent special, Rapid Fire, sums up his career and his comedy act perfectly. Please welcome to the Rosie and Bill Show, the top human finisher on Season 7 of America's Got Talent, Tom Cotter. Tom, welcome to the show, sir.
Thank you. Welcome back, Cotter. Thank you for having me on, even though it's the first time.
It's our pleasure. Tom, we saw you in July perform. It was the first time live. And I'll tell you, the first thing that came to my mind that I said to Bill, Johnny Carson. How often do you get that reference for your stand-up?
I've heard it before. So I don't try to do a Carson impression. I just think we were both kind of short white guys, and so people make that connection. But I loved him. I revered him. When I was a good kid, which was very rare as a child, my parents would let me stay up and watch The Tonight Show. They'd let me watch the monologue. And depending on how many cocktails my parents had, I may be able to stay to the end of the show. And the comedian was always the third guest. So I always stuck, if I could see Buddy Hackett or Carlin or somebody like that on The Tonight Show, I was just thrilled. I was over the moon. So, I've always revered Johnny Carson, and anyone that wants to compare me to him, I will take that as a badge of honor because he is one of the greats, of course, of all time. Absolutely.
And, it's your dry sense of humor, your delivery, understated, and the quick punchlines that Bill was talking about. And I'll tell you, you got to get on the ride with you because you don't dumb it down, and you got to keep up, because you keep going. You don't wait.
I think I'm ADD. When I was a kid, we didn't have ADD. When I was a kid, ADD was the opposite of subtract. But we had hyper. He's hyper. So they used to say, Tom's hyper. And I was hyper. I would play kick the can all the way to school, which is half a mile with a garbage can. And then once I got there, my teachers would make me go clap the erasers. I don't know if any of your viewers are from that era, but you used to have to clap the erasers. We had these things called chalkboards. They don't have those anymore. But I was always the victim who had to do that because I was so fidgety in my seat. I had restless leg syndrome before it was even diagnosed. And my comedy is kind of the same way. I'm a kind of a setup, punchline, tagline guy. So it's not just traditional stand-up as setup and punchline. I tag a joke to death ad nauseum. And that's just the way my style has always been. It's a style that goes back to vaudeville. It's called misdirection, and I love doing it. It's kind of a puzzle piece, a Rubik's Cube, trying to put it all together. It's a bunch of one-liners sewn together. And so people take that away from me. And I was just in Paris for 2 weeks for the Olympics. And you say I don't have to dumb it down. Well, I'm not disparaging the French. They're certainly not dumb, but there was a language barrier. So I did have to slow down quite significantly there so that they could get my inferences and my kind of what I was going for.
I have to tell you, Tom, and it's interesting that you said you slowed it down there, because one of the things that I was going to do was maybe give a little bit of a public service announcement for people coming to your shows, because I have to admit, there were times when we saw you at the Keswick where I was almost afraid to laugh, because I figured if I laugh, I'm going to miss 2 more punchlines. So I'm going to have to come back. So my public service announcement is, don't just go see Tom once. If he's in your area for more than one show, go multiple times, because you're going to hear a joke you missed while you were laughing. Promise.
That's it. I don't wait. I'm into the next punchline. If you didn't get the last one, you snooze, you lose. We're already on to the next one. And I think that's born out of insecurity. I hate lulls. My wife is a stand-up comic, and she's a storyteller. So she'll get up there and spend 5 minutes rearranging the microphone stand and the stool before she gets to a joke. And then I'm pulling my hair out in the back of the room going, say something. But she kills because she's like a slow storyteller and lets the audience come to her, whereas I am a rapid fire kind of guy and I just rattle off one-liners.
Yeah, and some of your jokes are time released too. I noticed. You know, 2 or 3 days later, you burst out laughing for no apparent reason.
I love it when people say they got some of my stuff on the ride home that they didn't catch when they were there. And, you know, people say I'll slap the dashboard of my car and go, oh, now I. So, yeah, it's kind of a puzzle piece. It's fun to put together. And there are other people that do it. Wendy Liedman is very similar, her style. There's a guy named Don Gavin out of Boston that people, if they have a moment, they should Google. He's one of the legends. And he's the guy I always looked up to, Brian Kiley. There are a few of us that do it. It's an old style, but it's a fun style.
Women are easy to tell if they're crazy. You could tell if a woman's crazy in direct proportion to her eyebrows. Yeah, the thinner the eyebrow, the crazier the broad. My mother-in-law shaves hers off and draws them back on, and she's Planet Bananas, okay?
Welcome, everyone, to the Rosie and Bill Show. Folks, to say we're excited about our guest this week, well, that would probably be the understatement of the year. She burst onto the scene as a finalist in Last Comic Standing. Her comedy specials are among the most watched and widely acclaimed of the last 20 years. And she's been performing to sold-out crowds for decades. Please welcome to the Rosie and Bill Show a world-class comedian who always finds the funny, Tammy Pescatelli. Tammy, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me. Wow, I didn't realize I'm that accomplished. I should quit at this point.
Get out while you're ahead.
Yes.
Tammy, you and I both grew up in Italian households.
Yes.
Could there be a better breeding ground for a stand-up comedian than that?
Well, I have to tell you too, like, people don't understand. Italian households don't necessarily grow up with laughter. It's all misery. Everything's miserable. They're all miserable. Don't say this because you can't give too many compliments because someone's going to make the maloik and you got to make the sign of the cross because God forbid, and who's you skeeve. But it's what's funny is when we would get together for all of those things, all of those bad things, all of the good things, all of the family dynamics, then you just see the characters emerge. And if you have the right eye for it, it's a lot of fun.
That's true. There you do have to be an observer and pay attention. Were your parents yellers? Like, because it seems to me that a lot of Italian families seem to talk just a notch above everyone else. So
yeah, yellers.
Like
I mean, completely. They're all yellers. As a matter of fact, I'll never forget when I moved into this small town with my husband, who, you know, I'm 100% Sicilian. He's first generation Italian from Brooklyn. We were like talking and we're in a small little town in Pennsylvania. Someone called the police on us and we were like, hey, this is just how we talk. Like, we're just loud. Like, it's not, please, you know, there's nothing going on. We're just loud.
That is so true. I mean, people say that to me. Why are you yelling? I'm like, it's just the way I talk.
Yeah, I don't know how to whisper.
Yeah, I'm curious. I don't know how I got loud. I grew up in a Scandinavian household, and we're not known for our yelling or anything. But Tammy, I do have to say one thing, though. I am a little bit jealous since I didn't grow up in an Italian household. I didn't have a Nonna who, if I got up at 2:30 in the morning, would make my bed and make me some food. So I'm jealous.
Well, you're kind of lucky then. You're kind of lucky because you could never please her. God bless that woman. May she rest in peace, but you could never please her. She was never, nothing impressed her. Literally, I'll never forget. I had just done the Tonight Show. It was the first thing I'd ever been on television. And I was like, Nona, did you see? She goes, I know watch, but okay.
And it just deflated it, right? But you got to put it in perspective. That's not important to them, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I was the dummy to call to ask her if she saw it. That's my fault. I should know better. That's one of the things when I went to therapy when I finally got health insurance through SAG, not because of major trauma. just to like unburden myself from the guilt that my family had put on me for all those years. Like that was my fault. If I was expecting, was I expecting her to all of a sudden change? She still never respected me until the day she died because I didn't cook. You know what I mean? Like it's not, she loved me, but she didn't understand a woman who didn't get married at 18 years old, have babies and cook, like, you know.
When did you discover that you had a knack for making people laugh?
You know, my father was a semi-professional football player. He went on to be a coach. He was sports were really important in our household. So my brothers got stronger and faster. Like we used to fight. We used to play football. I used to keep up with them. And then when we got to a certain age, they just got stronger and faster, but they could never outrun my mouth. So, you know, I mean, that I literally had to figure out how to use my powers for good, because I have the ability to say things that sit in those places of your mind that expand and expand and expand and crack their brains. I feel like I broke my brother to do.
Were you the funny gal in school too? Did that
No.
transfer there?
No, sarcastic, but not, no, I wasn't the funny one. I would say something like, I guess I was funnier than I thought, because people will now tell me, I remember when you said this or that. But no, in school, even that, I didn't think. I loved stand-up, but I didn't see women really that were identifiable for me. If you saw a female stand-up when I was a kid, you saw Phyllis Diller or Joan Rivers, who were amazing, or even Roseanne or Paula Poundstone, but talking about their husbands and their facelifts and their kids, which is exactly where I am now in my career. But, you know, I didn't know that was for me. It kind of happened, you know, I went to college, I have a degree in fashion design, and it kind of just all happened by circumstance. I was supposed to marry my high school boyfriend, and that didn't happen. And my parents had moved while I was away at college. So I thought, well, I'm going to hang out with them for the summer, then make my way into New York with my fashion degree. And there was a comedy club. I thought I'll see some funny comics. I'll make a little money. And when you're like 21 years old, it's hard to move to a new town without a social circle. So I thought I'll make a few friends. And they had an open mic night. And yeah, I decided that I was going to try it. And that was it. I was bit.
Wow. What comedy club was it? Do you remember?
Of course, the Funny Bone. And they were a national chain. So then I moved back to Cleveland, where I was originally from. And that Funny Bone chain was also owned by the Improvs. And that man, I became the house MC at the Improv there. And then worked my way all the way around through all the clubs. They owned like 34, 35 clubs.
Wow.
So, yeah, it was fun.
Wow. All right. I'm going to say a lot of awful things here tonight. Because if you think about it, a comedy stage is the last place in public you could say awful things. So, because they can't cancel me, because I got nothing going on. Okay? I don't live in Hollywood. I don't play by the Hollywood rules. I live in the suburbs of New Jersey. There's nothing they could take from me. Maybe if they took my lawnmower, I'd be upset. That's it. Other than that, I do a podcast in my house from my kitchen table, okay? You can't take anything. I'm not going to put my kid in Catholic school yet, because I just found out his teacher is 32 years old. She's single. She's a hot blonde. Yeah, I had to go meet with her a couple weeks ago, and I looked her up, and I was like, oh, shit. So when I met with her, I rented a tux. I put cologne on for the first time in 15 years. I got a spray tan. Yeah, I'm gonna wear her down. I figure I got time. But I asked my kid the next day, hey, was your teacher talking about me? He's like, no, please. It's like that. She's 32-year-old. You got no shot. He's like, you had a better shot than my 72-year-old first grade teacher. Okay, yeah, I took her out once. It didn't really work out, you know. Yeah, she wanted to go to dinner at 4:30 in the afternoon. I'm like, fuck that. Yeah, sorry, I don't want to go on a power walk with you. But But I told my kid, look, the only way I'm going to be able to date your teacher is you got to start causing problems in class. Because then I'm going to have to go in there and meet with her, and that's how I'm going to get to know her. I go, so start knocking desks over, throw chalk, punch kids in the face, whatever you got to do to get me in there. And he gets all nervous. He goes, yeah, what if mom finds out? I go, we're going to have a new mommy soon. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. And new mommy's going to have all the answers to the homework because I don't know shit.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Rosie and Bill Show. From stand-up comedy to hosting a popular cable television show to tormenting telemarketers, our guest this week has been making people laugh and making people think for years. Please welcome to the Rosie and Bill Show comedian, actor, and author, Jim Florentine. Hi, Jim. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me on. How you guys doing, all right?
Doing
We're
great.
doing great now. Absolutely, Jim. Great having you on. We've been looking forward to this and got a lot we want to talk to you about. Like Rosie just said, you've been doing so many things and you've been successful on so many fronts over the years. Your versatility is absolutely amazing. But what I'd like to do first, Jim, is kind of take a trip back to long before you were taking the stage, making people laugh and tormenting those telemarketers and writing books. Back to when you were a kid in school. What did you think you wanted to be when you grew up?
Yeah, I don't know. I really don't even remember what I wanted to be. Probably like a rock star or a baseball player. But I was always getting in trouble in school, so I was always the wise guy. So I knew there was some kind of comedic angle, or probably so I was going to go down that path.
Did your teachers always say like, "Oh, what do you think? You're funny"?
No, they more yell at me and get suspended and all that other stuff. Yeah.
When did you discover comedy? Was there something that you saw, a specific comedian that influenced you?
Rodney Dangerfield was a big influence. I loved his quick one-liners and his movies and everything. So I was a big Rodney fan. I like Richard Pryor. I like comedy. When I was about 12, 13 years old, I took a liking to comedy. And then, as Andrew Dice Clay, Sam Kinison, those guys like that came around, I really took a liking to that because they almost brought like a rock star mentality to comedy. Selling out arenas, opening for bands and doing all that stuff, and Dice with the leather jacket on. So that's what really gravitated me towards the stand-up.
So how old were you when you actually went to do your first show or open mic?
Probably like 23, 24. Yeah, I mean, it took me a while to get up on stage. I was DJing on the radio. I went to school, got a communications degree, and I was DJing. I had my own DJ business, and I was on like a local radio station, New Jersey. And that's what I thought I wanted to do. But then once I saw, those guys get on stage, I said, I want to be my own boss. I was always getting in trouble at what I say. I had to play like Phil Collins constantly, and I couldn't stand him. And I'm like, this isn't for me, because I'm like a metalhead. I'm like, I can't play, Susu Studio. The song stinks. So I decided to go up in like an open mic night. I was writing stuff for a while. It took me about a year or two to actually get up on stage, get the guts to go up and, do some public speaking. And once I got up there, I fell in love with it.
That's great. How long, I'm wondering, because it varies for everyone, but I've heard that it takes comedians a while to get their sea legs and also find their voice as a comedian. How would you say that that's still evolving for you, or when did you feel like you kind of settled into that?
The usual rule of thumb is the 9-year mark. Wow. You'll find, it takes 9 years to really hit your stride and find your voice and get really good at it. You could get good at it before, but the general rule of thumb is about year 9. You should be getting to the next level.
Wow.
So that was probably about the time, 8, 9 years, somewhere around there.
Well, Jim, when you look back, say at those early days, that first open mic night, in those first few years of that 9-year or so period, what are some of the early lessons that you learned as a young comic coming up?
I was just happy that I was making a living. Like, as soon as I was making a living at what I loved doing, whether it was like $300 a week, I was still living at home. To me, I made it. I'm like, I already made it because I love doing this and I'm getting paid and I'm paying my bills. So to me, like, I always had that attitude. But, I always had goals, obviously, too. But, I just put my head down and worked. I didn't care what anybody else was doing. I didn't get jealous of any other comics that were doing better than me that started. I never had that jealousy. I just said I always said there's room for everyone. And, and that's just my philosophy with it. So it's worked out.
Yeah, just make a quick comment that just came to mind is when you mentioned the $300 and you said earlier about, going to college for communications. So Rosie and I, we got 3 boxes here, 3 people with degrees in communications. So that means that when you were making about $300 a week, you were on the upper tier of earnings for a communications graduate. Congratulations.
Yeah, I know. My first radio job, I was doing mornings at this radio station, Keyport, New Jersey. I was making $100 a week. 6 to 9. They go, we're going to give you the morning show. So I was doing a night shift. I'm like, I'm going to be the morning man. Wow. It was $100. But I took it. I'm like, I can't, I know. Then I had to work a day job after that or whatever, but it was exciting for me. And that didn't last too long. But no, but again, back to the comedy. Once I started making a living, I'm like, this is great.